Captain America throws his mighty shield. All those who chose to oppose his shield must yield. If he's led to a fight and a duel is due, then the red and the white and the blue will come through when Captain America throws his mighty shield.
Hey everybody, this is Scarlet Comet here. We're going to be talking about Captain America today and his progression in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Beginning in 2011 was really when Captain America hit it off. Because that's when his first movie came out, Captain America: The First Avenger. Going into 2012 with The Avengers, 2014 with The Winter Soldier, 2015 with The Age of Ultron, and 2016 with Captain America: Civil War. Throughout these movies, we see a real progression in him as a character. Through his righteousness that began back in Captain America: The First Avenger, when we saw him going into basic training and always trying to get into that through the Army. And then the doctor brought him up and into the serum program that gave him his abilities. And because of his virtuous nature, and that showed him to be higher than those around him, and he really cared about the people to his left and right when he jumped on that grenade, because he cared about the men around him over himself. And that's a key factor to what made him Captain America and gave him that role. He earned it through his passion of taking care of those to his left and right.
The selflessness is usually always better than just trying to be so self-absorbed where you actually go ahead and fend for your life, and then for you to actually go ahead and get on top of the grenade and sacrifice yourself for the better good.
That's
I think it's a selfish move, to be honest. Because one, he's doing it for glory.
But he didn't know.
No, you do, because you see it starting with the very beginning of Captain America: The First Avenger, where he's into the fight. He's fighting these guys in the back alley, and Bucky's like, "Why are you always doing this?" He goes, "I have to prove myself," or whatever the fuck he says. And it's like he has to prove himself.
Well, it's a small man.
So he can be better than the other people.
But in that moment, when the grenade's thrown to the ground, he didn't look around and to be better, going off the idea that
that's because he knew he had an audience.
Well, if you look at that scene when he jumped on the grenade, he didn't look to his left and right and see, oh, everyone else is jumping.
That wasn't Captain America.
But that was the beginning of him becoming Captain America. That's what gave him the willpower to become Captain America. Before he got the serum, before he would put on the uniform and don the shield, he jumped on the grenade to save those around him. He felt a sense of duty to those to his left and right because those are his brothers and his sisters.
Mainly Agent Carter. First off, can we talk about how creepy Agent Carter is? Because she's got this hard-on for this little, 14-year-old looking boy. It's very gross. Just saying.
But I think it's so hot.
So it's like when you see a hot teacher sleep with a student, you're like, well, I would have too.
That could have been me. That could have been me.
But I was homeschooled.
So his heroism is what made him the great leader. That he stood up, and even when stood up above those around him, even going into when he was trying to do the propaganda part of being the Captain America the United States knew him as. He went to Germany, was standing up for the soldiers, trying to make them feel better in the middle of war, and then he found out Bucky is in trouble. So he took that fake shield of his and ran across borders, flew across borders, and jumped out of a plane to go save his very good friend Bucky. And he did that because he cared about his brother. He cared about those around him and wanted to save them because he knew he had the ability at this point to do it. Even going into...
Once again, seeking the glory for himself. He could have waited until the Howling Commandos figured a way out.
Maybe.
But he didn't get the Howling Commandos till almost
He's not even
10
Captain
years
America
later.
At that time.
No, he's not.
He's still Steve Rogers,
himself, yeah.
and he's still that kid that's trying to prove himself that I am a hero, even though I have all these medical ailments that always need to be bailed out.
I can definitely agree with that he's the guy that's trying to prove himself after.
So is that even actual heroism?
I would think so.
Because
how is proving yourself? How is trying to rise above what people expect of you, and can you can live a normal life? He could have done a lot better. I mean, he could have done more things at home supporting the war effort as opposed to punching things. Now, granted, because of his story arc,
he also shot things.
Think about this. What if he never got that super soldier serum? What would have been the purpose of his heroism in the beginning parts of that movie?
This is what really brought him out of that kid from Brooklyn. At first, he was this little guy trying to prove himself against the bigger guys. I can definitely agree with that. But he got the serum. He got the willpower. Going into Captain America Civil War, when Spider-Man is sitting there talking to Tony Stark, and he's like, when you have these new abilities and the bad guys still do bad things, it's partly your fault. Captain America didn't have those abilities. Steve Rogers, didn't have those abilities, and so he tried to push above that, and he couldn't. He got the abilities.
Because he's a bitch.
He was still that kid from Brooklyn. Going into Germany, he was still the kid from Brooklyn. He couldn't take into account what he achieved, what he had gotten from that doctor when he had the serum injected.
But for him to go ahead and push himself to the point where he's like he's denied all the time and changing his name
For legitimate health issues.
yeah,
though.
legitimate health issues. But the thing is that for him to change his name so many times so he can actually benefit, so he can actually join the fight and stop the bad guys.
He doesn't-
I think that's where like the soul of Captain America is.
But
is
was
the
he
fact
really
that
wanting to join to stop the bad guys, or was he joining to just try to save face?
He didn't want to be the guy left behind.
Exactly.
But what I'm trying to
That's
get
not
into
really going in to
is
save-
once he jumped out of that plane and saved Bucky, he gave all sense of being the kid from Brooklyn. When he was in that alley getting beat up by the guy in the movie theater, he was trying to prove himself. But once he saved Bucky, he realized, I'm not that kid from Brooklyn anymore. I have these abilities. I don't have to prove myself.
So what does he become then?
He becomes Captain America. Well, once he jumped out and saved Bucky and all the other men in World War II from Hydra, he became Captain America, and the symbol that led the Howling Commandos through World War II to take apart Hydra's compounds. He let go of that kid from Brooklyn complex that he had. He gave up the idea that he had to prove himself because he was earning that right. He donned the shield from Howard Stark, and it gave him that essence that, hey, I am the leader and the symbol of nationalism and patriotism and the pride that comes from being in a small unit, the Howling Commandos. And then he lost Bucky, and he was like...
Once again, let's go back to the shield, okay? Because that's a major point of Captain America, right?
The shield is everything that he's like.
But think about how he got it within the movie, okay? Do you remember how he got the shield?
Yeah, it was just sitting there, and he was like, "Why can't we give these to all people?"
And he's like, "Oh, Howard Stark's like, oh, it's so expensive. That's like the
That's
all we got. That's
Are we
all the
talking about
vibranium."
the first shield or his actual
Yeah.
shield?
No, the
his,
actual vibranium
circular
shield.
Oh, okay, so yeah, exactly.
So Howard Stark's in there, and he's like, "Oh, that's all the thing," but why did he choose that shield? He didn't have any other prerequisite to what the actual shield can do. Agent Carter shoots him, which is quite insane. Why does she shoot him?
That was a
That's
comedic
all
stance.
Now, hang on. Why does she shoot
all
him?
passion.
Because she was mad at him.
Why?
Because he was getting touched up on by another woman.
Yeah, by Queen Marjorie, by the way. Which,
Yeah, I know, right?
anytime
Oh.
that happens, that's a hall pass.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter who you're with.
I have to
Doesn't
say
matter
it.
who you're dating.
I have to say it
Queen
is.
Marjorie starts touching on you. You get to play around. She shoots him in the middle of a crowded lab, and just fucking shoots. I don't know if you've ever been around guns and shot a gun.
Yeah.
They're pretty goddamn dangerous.
I can't imagine actually pointing one at someone
Right?
and just out of anger.
Right?
I trust that shield that he picked up.
But also, it's bullshit because Captain America and Agent Carter weren't together. They weren't an item.
No,
because
but-
one, she was flirting with Howard the entire time. Okay, now Captain America thought she was with Howard, so there's that whole like, oh, he said, she said, I thought, she thought things, and then she just walks up and fucking shoots him, and then he's like, this protects against things. It's pretty dangerous to me, so I'm going to take that. I just feel like that's kind of a weird introduction for one of the most symbolic items for the entire MCU. Like, I mean, you watch Civil War, the whole crux of what Captain America comes to, his penultimate moment of who he
when
actually
he
is,
drops that
is when he
shield.
drops the shield after Tony Stark goes, that's not yours.
And that, I feel, is the real pinnacle of what describes Captain America. Tony Stark is like, that shield doesn't belong to you. It's my father's. And he's like, you know what? I know who I am. That shows...
Also because Agent Carter's already dead by this point. So he's not afraid of getting
True.
shot.
Yeah, he's not afraid to get shot.
He got that text message. Hey, she's gone in her sleep. Which, segue, a terrible way to tell somebody that the love of your life is dead. After
No, I think skywriting would be worse.
bitch gone.
It's like, why did you spell it that way? Well, you know how much it costs per word?
You forgot the comma.
It's like one of my favorite jokes in Curb Your Enthusiasm. They're at this grave of, I can't remember who they're at the grave of. And it goes, passed away, and it's P-A-S-T away. That's not how you spell it.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, that's not how you spell it. And he goes, I know how to spell past. It's just $50 a letter. And I'm like, yes, that will be my gravestone, and my family will be like,